What if I told you that the key to spiritual awakening isn't hidden in some faraway temple or locked behind years of meditation? What if it's been growing right here on earth all along, waiting to reconnect you with who you really are? For thousands of years, the world's wisest spiritual people knew something that our modern world has completely forgotten. They understood that your mind and spirit have a real physical connection, and that there's a plant that can unlock states of awareness most people spend their whole lives looking for. But here's what will blow your mind. Your body already came ready for this experience. Every single person on the planet has a built-in system that works perfectly with this ancient plant teacher. Science is just now proving what healers and wise people have known forever. So here's the question that's going to change everything. If spiritual awakening isn't about escaping life, but seeing it more clearly, and if the tools for expanded awareness are already inside you, then what have you been searching for that was never actually missing? By the end of this journey, you'll see this moment totally differently. You'll understand that the ancient secret hidden in plain sight was never really about the plant at all. Let me show you what those wise people knew that we're just starting to remember. The forgotten path. When plants were teachers. Picture this. Thousands of years ago, a wise man sits by a river in India. He's using cannabis as part of his spiritual practice, believing it helps him connect with something bigger than himself. On the other side of the world, Rastafarians pass around their sacred plant, thinking it opens their minds to God's truth. In the mountains of Tibet, monks quietly use it to help them reach deeper states of prayer. What did they all know that we've completely forgotten? Here's the truth that might blow your mind. For thousands of years, some of the world's biggest religions didn't just allow cannabis, they thought it was holy. Ancient Indian texts call it sacred grass and the joy bringer. Rastafarians don't just smoke it for fun, they use it like a prayer, believing it shows them the divine spirit that was always inside them. But somewhere along the way, we lost that connection. We stopped seeing what people all around the world once knew, that this plant could be a teacher. Think about that word, teacher. Not a drug to escape reality, not something to abuse. A teacher. Ancient people in Russia built whole ceremonies around cannabis. Old Chinese writings call it one of the most powerful spiritual tools. Some early Christians might have even used cannabis oil in their holy rituals, the same recipe mentioned in the Bible. So here's the mind-blowing question. What if one of the most powerful spiritual tools in human history has been sitting right in front of us, but we've written it off as just a party drug? Look around you. People spend thousands of dollars on spiritual retreats. They travel halfway around the world looking for enlightenment. They follow spiritual teachers and buy endless books about finding meaning. Meanwhile, shamans and healers on every continent have been using this same plant for thousands of years to connect with what they call the spirit world. People in the far north called it the plant that shows the way. Amazon healers still use it with other sacred plants, not to escape life, but to heal and gain wisdom. These weren't simple people just trying to get high. These were smart cultures that understood something we've completely lost. They knew the difference between using something as medicine and using it for fun, between treating it as sacred and just getting stoned. But how did we lose this ancient knowledge? How did a plant that wise people once considered holy become public enemy number one? The answer explains everything about why so many people today feel lost and empty, searching everywhere except the one place our ancestors knew held the answers. The science of sacred, your brain on spirit. So how did those ancient wise people know something that scientists are just now figuring out? The answer will blow your mind and change how you see your own brain. Here's what shocked me when I first learned this. Your body already has a built-in system that works perfectly with cannabis. Every single person on earth has it. Think about that for a moment. You were literally born ready for this plant. But here's where it gets crazy. Top scientists have discovered that when cannabis works with your brain, something amazing happens. It turns down the volume on the part of your brain that never shuts up. You know that voice in your head? The one that's always worrying, judging yourself, planning, thinking about what went wrong yesterday? When cannabis quiets that voice down, something incredible happens. People feel connected to everything around them. The walls between me and everything else start to melt away. Suddenly, you're not just sitting alone in a room anymore. You feel like you're part of something much bigger. Sound familiar? That's exactly what those ancient healers and wise people were talking about when they said cannabis helped them connect with something divine. Your ancestors weren't just making stuff up. They were using the same natural brain process that scientists today can actually see happening in brain scans. Top researchers have found that when that chattering voice in your head gets quiet, your fixed ideas about yourself and the world become flexible. You can suddenly see connections you never noticed before. You feel love for people you used to judge. You see beauty in things you used to walk right past. But here's the mind-blowing part. This isn't just about getting high. This is your brain going back to a more natural, connected way of being. Kids' brains actually work more like this before the world teaches them to put up walls and separate themselves from everything. That feeling of spiritual awakening isn't some weird mystical thing. It's your brain remembering what real connection feels like when you turn down all that constant self-criticism and separation. Think about the last time you felt totally peaceful. Maybe watching a beautiful sunset, holding a baby, or getting lost in amazing music. That noisy voice in your head probably got quiet for a moment, and you felt connected to something bigger than your daily stress. Cannabis can open that same door, but for longer, deeper, and in ways that can really change you. Now, some people hear this and think, great, so I can just smoke and become spiritually awakened. Hold on there. Just like those ancient cultures knew the difference between medicine and fun, science shows us that how you approach it makes all the difference. You can use cannabis to zone out watching TV and eat junk food, or you can use it as a tool for real spiritual growth. Your brain doesn't care which one you pick, but what happens will be totally different. Those ancient plant teachers our ancestors talked about, they weren't magical. They were natural keys to unlock states of mind that science now proves are real, measurable, and incredibly healing. But knowing the science is just the start. The real question is, what happens when you actually feel what it's like to have your mind without all those walls it usually builds? That's where everything really begins to change. The inner landscape. Consciousness unbound. So what really happens when that chattering voice in your head finally shuts up? What you're about to learn will totally change how you see yourself and the world. Picture this. You're sitting in your room, but suddenly everything feels different. Colors look brighter and more alive. You hear sounds you never noticed before. The buzz of lights, birds singing, even your own breathing. Time feels weird, like it's moving super slow or really fast. And then something amazing hits you. You're not separate from all this stuff around you. You are part of it all. That's what millions of people feel when cannabis opens a door in their mind. But here's the crazy part. This isn't some fake feeling you're imagining. This is you seeing life the way it really is, without all the stuff that usually blocks your view. Think about it like this. Your everyday mind is like wearing dark sunglasses inside a house. You can still see, but everything looks darker and more cut off than it really is. Cannabis doesn't add anything weird to what you see. It just takes off those dark glasses. All of a sudden, you realize something that changes everything. That feeling like you're all alone in the world, separate from everything else, that's just a story your mind made up. The truth is, you're connected to everything. The air you breathe, the ground you walk on, other people, even the stars way up in the sky. You're all part of one big, amazing web of life. This is what those old wise people meant when they talked about connecting with something divine. They weren't talking about meeting some god sitting on a cloud. They were talking about realizing that you are part of something divine. You're not separate from the universe. You're like a special piece of it. But here's where it gets really personal. When you feel this deep connection, something incredible happens with how you see other people. That person who was rude to you, you suddenly understand they're probably stressed or scared. Your annoying family member, you see past what they do to the hurt feelings underneath. Even someone you don't really like, you realize they're just another person like you, trying to figure out this crazy life. This isn't just nice sounding spiritual stuff. When your brain stops putting up walls between me and everything else, you literally start seeing the world with new eyes. Colors look more beautiful, not just because cannabis changes your vision, but because you're finally really paying attention. Music doesn't just sound better, you feel how it touches emotions you forgot you had. And time becomes this bendable, stretchy thing. A few minutes can feel like hours when you're totally amazed by something beautiful. Or hours can fly by like seconds when you're deep in thought or being creative. You realize that the clock on the wall is just one way to think about time, and maybe not the most important way. Here's what really blew my mind. People think this bigger awareness means you're not yourself anymore, but it's totally the opposite. You're finally seeing who you really are under all the worry, judging, and fear that usually covers up your true self. You know that feeling when you're with someone who totally gets you and accepts you just as you are? That's how you start feeling about everything when those walls in your mind come down. The tree outside isn't just some tree, it's a living thing, sharing the same air you breathe. The person at the store isn't just some random person, they're another soul trying to figure out life just like you. But here's what scared me at first. If everything is connected, if being separate from the world is just something my mind made up, then who am I really? What am I when all those walls disappear? That's when you discover the most amazing truth ever. You're not losing who you are, you're finding out who you really are. The real you isn't that worried, separate, always judging person you thought you were. The real you is something way bigger, way more connected, and way more loving than you ever dreamed. This is why people have called cannabis a teacher for thousands of years. It doesn't just tell you stuff, it lets you actually feel truths that no book or class could ever really explain. But here's the really important part that those old cultures understood and we're just starting to remember. Having these incredible experiences is just the beginning. The big question is, what do you do with these amazing insights when you go back to regular everyday life? Because that's where the real spiritual growth starts. Sacred practice, from high to holy. So you've had this incredible experience where you felt connected to everything. You saw yourself and the world in a totally new way. But then you wake up the next morning, grab your coffee, check your phone, and think, was that real or was I just really stoned? Here's the truth that changes everything. The difference between getting stoned and having a spiritual experience has nothing to do with the plant. It has everything to do with you. Think about it like this. You can use a kitchen knife to make a delicious meal for your family, or you could use it to hurt someone. Same knife, totally different result. Cannabis is the same way. It's not good or bad. It's a tool. And like any powerful tool, what matters is how you use it. Those old wise people we talked about, they didn't just smoke cannabis and hope something cool would happen. They treated it like holy medicine. They made special spaces. They decided what they wanted to learn or feel. They approached it with respect, not as a way to escape life, but as a way to see life more clearly. But here's what most people today totally miss. The magic isn't in the plant. The magic is in how you prepare. Let me explain what I mean. You can smoke cannabis while scrolling through your phone, eating junk food, and watching dumb TV shows. And you know what you'll get? A dumb experience. You'll zone out, maybe laugh at silly videos, eat way too much, and wake up feeling cloudy and disconnected. Or you can do it the way spiritual people have for thousands of years. You clean your room. You turn off all the distractions. You decide what you want to get out of it, maybe to heal old hurt, understand a relationship better, or connect with your creative side. You treat the whole thing like a special ceremony, not a party. Same plant, totally different results. This is what those old cultures meant when they talked about your mindset and your environment. How you're feeling going in and the space you create, that's what decides whether you have a spiritual breakthrough or just get stuck on the couch watching Netflix. Here's a perfect example. Imagine going to church while you're mad, distracted, and checking your phone every 2 minutes. Would you expect to feel close to God? Of course not. But that's exactly how most people use cannabis, with no preparation, no plan, no respect for what they're doing. But when you approach it with the same respect those old healers did, everything changes. You might spend time sitting quietly first, clearing your mind and deciding what you want to learn. You make a clean, peaceful space, maybe light some candles, play soft music, have some water nearby. You approach the plant like you're asking a wise teacher for help, not demanding fun. And here's where it gets really cool. You can mix cannabis with other spiritual stuff to make them even more powerful. Meditation while gently high can take you deeper than you've ever gone before. That chattering voice we talked about gets so quiet that you can actually hear your inner wisdom talking. Breathing exercises become amazing. You become super aware of each breath, and you start to feel how breathing connects you to every living thing on the planet. Praying or thinking about what you want feels more real and heartfelt. Being creative, whether it's drawing, writing, dancing, or playing music, comes from a deeper place inside you. Even simple things like taking a slow walk outside become incredible spiritual experiences. You notice stuff you've walked past 1,000,000 times before. You feel your connection to the ground under your feet, the air moving through the trees, the amazing web of life all around you. But here's the key that most people miss. It's not about being high. It's about being present. Cannabis just removes the mental noise that usually keeps you from being fully here, fully aware, fully alive. Some people think, well, if I need a plant to be spiritual, doesn't that mean I'm weak or doing something wrong? That's like saying, if I need glasses to see clearly, does that mean my eyes are broken? Tools aren't crutches, they're helpers. They help you reach what's already inside you. The old plant teachers knew this. They understood that some people need a little help quieting their mind, opening their heart, and seeing past the feeling of being alone and separate. There's nothing wrong with that. There's only wisdom in using whatever helps you connect with your true self. But here's the really important part, and this is where many people mess up. The plant can show you the door, but you have to walk through it yourself. The insights you get, the love you feel, the connections you make, those have to become part of your everyday life. Because here's what I've learned. The most powerful spiritual experiences mean nothing if they don't change how you live when you come back to regular reality. And that's where the real change happens. Not in those peak moments of feeling connected, but in how you bring that awareness into your daily relationships, your work, your problems, and your dreams.
The integration journey. Walking the path. So, you've had the experience. You felt that amazing connection to everything. You've seen through the walls your mind usually puts up. You've touched something real and deep. But now comes the hardest part of the whole journey. How do you keep that feeling alive when you're stuck in traffic, dealing with a mean boss, or fighting with your family? Here's the tough truth nobody wants to hear. Most people have incredible spiritual experiences, and then go right back to living exactly the same way they did before. They keep chasing that peak moment instead of doing the real work of bringing that awareness into everyday life. But here's what those old wise people understood that we're just learning again. The point was never to stay high. The point was to remember who you really are when you come back down. Think about it like this. Imagine you climbed a mountain and saw the most beautiful view of your whole life. You could spend the rest of your life trying to live on top of that mountain. Or you could come back down and live differently because of what you saw up there. That's what real spiritual growth looks like. It's not about escaping regular life. It's about changing it. So how do you actually do that? How do you take those incredible feelings about connection and love and being part of everything and make them real in a world that often feels anything but connected? Here's where it gets practical. You start small, really small. Maybe you begin your day by taking 3 deep breaths and remembering that feeling of being connected to everything. Maybe when someone cuts you off in traffic, instead of getting mad, you remember that they're just another person struggling through life, just like you. Maybe when you're feeling stressed at work, you step outside for a moment and really look at the sky, the trees, the air you're breathing. You remember that you're not just your job or your to-do list. You're part of this incredible web of life that connects everything. Some people start keeping a notebook where they write down things they learned during their spiritual experiences. Others start meditating every day, even if it's just 5 minutes of sitting quietly. Some people find that spending time outside regularly helps them stay connected to that bigger picture. The key is this. You're not trying to recreate that peak experience. You're trying to live from the wisdom it gave you. Here's something amazing that happens when you start doing this. Your relationships begin to change. When you truly understand that everyone is fighting their own battles, carrying their own hurt, looking for their own meaning, you start treating people with more patience and kindness. That difficult family member, you see their behavior differently when you remember that hurt people hurt people. Your work starts to feel different too. Even if you're doing the same job, you might do it with more focus, more creativity, more awareness of how what you do affects others. You might find yourself wanting work that feels more meaningful, more connected to what you believe in. Even your everyday moments become richer. Eating becomes more mindful. You actually taste your food instead of just shoving it down. Walking becomes like meditation. You notice the world around you instead of being lost in your thoughts. But here's the thing that really blows people's minds. The more you bring these insights into daily life, the less you need the plant to access them. Cannabis becomes like training wheels. It helps you learn to ride the bike of expanded awareness, but eventually, you can ride without them. This doesn't mean you stop using cannabis if it helps you. It means you're no longer dependent on it for spiritual connection. You've learned to access that deeper awareness through meditation, through nature, through mindful living, through love and helping others. And here's the beautiful twist. When you no longer need cannabis to feel spiritual, it becomes even more powerful as a tool for going deeper, for healing old hurts, for gaining new insights, for connecting with others in meaningful ways. You realize that awakening isn't a place you get to once and then you're done. It's a way of living, a way of being present, a way of staying open to the mystery and beauty of life. The old cultures knew this. They didn't use their plant teachers to escape reality. They used them to engage with reality more fully, more lovingly, more wisely. So we come full circle to where we started. Remember that question about whether spiritual awakening is found in faraway temples or right here on earth? Now, you know the answer. It was never about the temples or the plants or the teachers. It was always about you learning to see what was already there.
Remember when I asked you, what have you been searching for that was never actually missing? Now you know. The key to spiritual awakening wasn't hidden in some faraway temple. It wasn't locked behind years of meditation. And it wasn't growing here on earth waiting to reconnect you with who you really are. Because you were never disconnected. The ancient secret hidden in plain sight? You are the secret. You always were. Every person who's ever felt lost, empty, or separate has been living this same beautiful misunderstanding. Cannabis doesn't give you expanded awareness. It shows you the awareness you already have. This changes everything about how you see every spiritual tool, every teacher, every path. They're all mirrors reflecting what was never actually missing. So here's the question that only makes sense now that you've completed this journey. If you were never broken, what have you been trying to fix? Think about that. Really think about it. If this revelation transformed how you see yourself and reality, subscribe for more circular journeys that uncover what you already know but forgot you knew. The deepest truths come full circle.